Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program's going to begin right now.
On behalf of the people of Minnesota and the United States of America, I offer this toast to His Majesty, King Harald V of Norway.
On behalf of the people of Norway, I offer this toast to the President of the United States, President Joe Biden.
President Biden.
Thank you, Governor Walz and Your Excellency.
Well done.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alness. Ladies and gentlemen, the Norwegian Glee Club of Minneapolis formed in 1912, and it is a member chorus of the Norwegian Singers Association of America. Their purpose is to bring together men of Norwegian birth or ancestry, or others who are interested in choral singing for their enjoyment and the enjoyment of others. They brought their Scandinavian musical treasures to the 40th anniversary celebration in 2013 and are here again 10 years later to commemorate our 50th event. The chorus is directed by Pastor Arden Haug. Rachel Jensen will also be playing a traditional Norwegian fiddle from Hardanger. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Norwegian Glee Club of Minneapolis.
dig, så sa du ja, så sa du kjæresten min. Og jeg står stasgar for deg, og du er silkefri. Og brudemarsen går, den er våres i dag. For vi får lov av livet og leve i lag. For sa du nei, så sa du ja, så sa du kjæresten min. Og jeg står stasgar for deg, og du er silkefri. Og brudemarsen går, den er våres i dag. For vi får lov av livet og leve i lag. Og vi vet ikke veien ned til oss av lov. Vi er så små iblant, og livet så stort. Og ikke kjøl som en blomst, den kan visne, den kan knekk. Men kjærlighet er rått som levenblomsten brekk. Øyeblikken, ta det med deg, lykka vi vant. Midt i mørket finnes alt det fine vi fant. Alt det fine vi fant. For sa du nei, så sa du ja, så sa du kjæresten min. Og jeg står stasgar for deg, og du er silkefin. Og brudemarsen går, den er våres i dag. For vi får lov av livet og leve i lag. For vi får lov av livet og leve i lag.
Thank you, Norwegian Glee Club of Minneapolis and Rachel Jensen. Ladies and gentlemen, next week, Minnesota leaders will travel to Trondheim to celebrate the official signing of the state partnership program between our two nations. Leading Minnesota's delegation will be the Minnesota National Guard's Commander-in-Chief. Tim Walz is Minnesota's 41st governor and a passionate supporter of the women and men who serve, or have served, our nation in uniform, as well as their families, employers, and communities. His career has been defined by public service, as demonstrated by serving our country for over 24 years in the military. He served our students as a high school teacher and football coach, and served our state in Congress. While in Congress, he was selected to the House Armed Services Committee, where he was highly influential to make policy in support of all service members. Governor Walz serves as co-chairman on the Council of Governors and leads the Military Matters Working Group. In this critical capacity, he promotes for military benefits and resources that benefit former, current, and future service members across all services. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Governor Tim Walz.
Good evening. Ambassador Krutner, Ambassador Nathanson, thank you for being with us. You honor us with your presence here. Senator Klobuchar, Congresswoman McCollum, and Omar, thank you for taking time of your schedule to be here. General Menke, General Mickelson, to all members of the Minnesota National Guard, both active and retired, and to the Norwegian Home Guard, thank you for sharing this evening tonight. I'd like to give a thank you to Dr. Olness. Thank you for sharing your story. And the Glee Club, the Minneapolis Norwegian Glee Club. Folks in this room know that sometimes it becomes so self-evident we need to maybe remind folks the Norwegian culture and the Norwegian people are truly woven into the very fabric of this state, going back to statehood and all the way up until this very moment. For those of you in this room who've had the opportunity to travel to Norway and to train with the Norwegian Home Guard, you'll never forget the people, you'll never forget the training, and I say if you had the blessing to see it, you'll never forget the northern lights over a fjord in Norway. These are things that stick with us, and the things that stick with us, like friendship, are what matters most. 50 years of this tradition, 50 years of standing by our friends. This became the model all of the past participants of the NOREX exercises, this became the model for a critical part of our nation's defense strategy, the state partnerships. And this afternoon, in the rotunda of the Capitol, we signed our letter of intent, and we will travel to Norway next week to finalize that. I was mentioning earlier that when Queen Sonja was here and people are still talking about her visit, the Queen very publicly said she wanted this partnership formalized as quickly as possible. The General Menke and I and others looked at ourselves and said, well, the Pentagon doesn't move as fast as a queen. But thanks to our congressional delegation, thanks to the hard work of the ambassadors, they made that happen. And we will formally sign that into being next week. But it doesn't change the fact, again, that will be the official signing of it. The deep ties that are between our two nations, the deep ties in our nation's security are unwavering. And we wished it weren't so, but the world is a chaotic place. Europe is once again at war, which many of us hoped we would never see. But hope is not a plan. Preparation and standing with your allies is a plan to make sure that aggression does not go unchecked. And for 50 years, this partnership on military matters, on cultural matters, on economic exchanges have strengthened this. So in a world where it's more important than ever to know who your friends are, Minnesota and the United States has no better friend than our Norwegian friends. We have no better ally than our Norwegian allies, and we stand as one. Friends stand with friends. I want to give one final thank you tonight. None of this would have been possible without an incredible partnerships from a group that those here know very well, feeding our troops. And the women and men who participate in that are going to be providing this incredible meal, have done this from the sands of the Middle East across the world to make sure that our troops, wherever they are, know that they're cared for at home. So thank you to serving our troops, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Governor Walz. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the honor to introduce the Ambassador of Norway to the United States. An expert in security policy, law of the sea, and Arctic issues, Ambassador Anniken Krutnes has served with the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs since beginning as a trainee in 1994. In her previous position with the ministry, she served as Deputy Director General of the Department of Security Policy. Before that, she was Norway's ambassador for Arctic and Antarctic affairs. Ambassador Krutnes has had postings in several European countries, including ambassadorships of the Netherlands and Luxembourg. She was recently a member of the United Nations group of governmental experts on advancing responsible state behavior in cyberspace in the context of international security. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Her Excellency Ambassador Anniken Krutnes.
Good evening, everyone. Governor, Ambassador, Senator, Congresswomen, generals, dear friends, distinguished guests, it is such a pleasure to be here tonight and to be back in Minnesota. I came to the United States as ambassador in September 2020, and my first travel was to Minnesota. And I've already lost count of how many times I've been here. So Minnesota is my home away from home, as it is for those who are luckily on the exchange program. Our two countries have been great friends and allies for years. And as the governor said, allies and friends stand together. We know that the US is our most important ally, and we see that we have to stand together. It is more important than ever, and we stand together for Ukraine. The exchange of troops between Norway and Minnesota is a part of the friendship and cooperation that we enjoy. And it is not a coincidence that our troop exchange was established with Minnesota. Of course, we have much in common. Hundreds of thousands of Norwegians emigrated here in the 19th and 20th centuries. Many of their descendants were raised observing Norwegian traditions. We have similar populations in size. Norway and Minnesota are home to more than 5 million people each. However, we have to go back to World War II in order to truly understand how Minnesota and Norway are linked in a military sense. Two of the most important military events in the history of Norwegian-American relations stem from Minnesota. The first one is the 99th Infantry Battalion. Some might know it as the Viking Battalion, which was established at Camp Ripley. All the American soldiers who joined had to be Norwegian speakers. After almost a year of fighting in Europe, the Viking Battalion stood as honor guards when King Haakon VII returned to Norway. A total of 1,001 Norwegian Americans served in that battalion, 2 of them still living today. The second link between Minnesota and Norway in the Second World War is Operation Rype. It was the only American clandestine operation on Norwegian soil, and along with Norwegian resistance, soldiers strengthened efforts in mainland Europe by sabotaging German troops who had invaded Norway. Again, this operation depended on soldiers who could speak Norwegian, so they were largely recruited from the Viking Battalion, and that means they came from Minnesota. The 50-year celebration of the Minnesota National Guard and the Norwegian Home Guard marks a mature and developed relationship. It demonstrates the strong historic ties between this part of the US and Norway. And it speaks to the long-standing friendships that this exchange has been known to foster. I look forward to the celebration tonight, and I look forward to going to Camp Ripley tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Krutnes. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the honor to introduce the Ambassador of the United States to Norway. Ambassador Mark Nathanson was accredited as United States Ambassador to the Kingdom of Norway on June 16, 2022. He was one of America's leading communications entrepreneurs and is a noted environmentalist. He founded Falcon Cable TV in 1975, and in 1999, he became vice chairman of Charter Communications. Before his appointment as ambassador, he was chairman of Mapleton Investments, a holding company. Ambassador Nathanson was chairman of the United States Agency for Global Media during the Clinton-Gore and Bush-Cheney administrations. He was appointed by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in 2012 as representative to the Board of Governors of the East-West Center in Honolulu. Ambassador Nathanson is the immediate past co-chairman of the Pacific Council on International Policy and vice chairman of the National Democratic Institute for International Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Excellency Ambassador Mark Nathanson.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here in Minneapolis. This is also my ancestral home, the Twin Cities. Both my parents graduated from the University of Minnesota and were born here. I unfortunately, when I was 4, had to move to the warmer climate when my father got a job in Chicago. It was never very warm there. I'm very proud to be here tonight to commemorate the 50 years of our shared friendship and partnership, our history and shared values, all of which extend far beyond mutual defense ties. The United States and Norway stand together to defend freedom, fight pandemics, address global hunger, address climate change challenges, and of course, the steadfast support of the people of Ukraine. On this special day, before all of you, I'd like to give a thanks from President Biden to all of the men and women in the Minnesota National Guard and the Norwegian Home Guard who are steadfastly defending democracy. I'd like to raise a glass to all of you and say, Skål.
Thank you, Ambassador Nathanson. Ladies and gentlemen, our Minnesota National Guard partner, serving our troops, is catering tonight's event and serving their famous steaks. Serving our troops' message is, it's a simple thing, dinner with the family. And our Norwegian guests are definitely family. Thank you, serving our troops. Our military escorts will release you by table. While you are enjoying your meal, an ensemble from our 34th Red Bull Infantry Division Band will provide dinner music.
Ladies and gentlemen, our program will resume in 5 minutes. The programmer will return in 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program will begin in 1 minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? Our program will begin again. This evening, the Minnesota National Guard has a video presentation commemorating the history of our special relationship. Minnesota Guard's Public Affairs member, Staff Sergeant Sidney Mariette, directed and edited the 50th anniversary video you are about to see. Ladies and gentlemen, we give you NOREX50.
Minnesota and Norway, a state and country bonded together by shared heritage, climate, and the legacy of hosting the longest-running bilateral troop exchange in the history of the Department of Defense. The Norwegian Reciprocal Troop Exchange, known as NOREX, began as a simple handshake between the Norwegian Inspector General and the Chief of the National Guard in 1973. They shared best practices about each nation's training operations and equipment to improve their own organization. But at its core, this would be an opportunity for Norwegian and American troops to form bonds of friendship across the Atlantic, creating an international partnership on a personal level that would last for the next 50 years.
The first exchange, because it was so new, we were just not really knowing what we were going to expect, but we were excited to go. When we first got to the Torpelmoen for the training, the first few days was exchanging equipment for one thing. We got rid of our American uniform. We had their skis and their poles and their pants, and then we started some rifle training, shooting an AK-47 because that was the NATO weapon, and then starting to learn how to ski a little bit on some smaller hills because some of the guys had never skied before, of course.
I'm sorry, what are you doing in the snow? Taking a bath. I didn't get one this morning.
I had never skied growing up in Minnesota. So, they're like, oh, it won't be no problem. We're going to teach you how to cross-country ski. I got to tell you, it was more like downhill ski in Minnesota, being in those Norwegian mountains. I was constantly falling. We hiked across the mountains from where we were stationed at Camp Torpel to our next location. And it's a two-man team. You're carrying this 80-pound sled behind you. Learning how to ski over there was an amazing experience.
The most important thing is to learn people to live outside during the winter. It's completely doable to stay outside, although it's cold, snowy and stuff. Learn how to ski, learn how to survive in a tent, learn how to put up a tent during winter time, learn how to dig snow caves, live in snow caves.
So this is the snow cave that we're doing. This one, there's gonna be 4 man in there. It's about 5 to 6 degrees warmer in here normally, is what we were told. And then once you get a couple bodies in here, it'll go up a couple more degrees as well. I'm really glad that I got selected to do it, because this is definitely a once in a lifetime. And coming out here skiing, you know, I stopped several times to look back and just take a break, just to look at, you know, the scenery, and just being able to see that and actually work with other troops has been a good experience.
This is the 12th year of the Norway American Guard Exchange, where members of the Norwegian Home Guard have come here to Minnesota to train at Camp Ripley and to get an idea of what Minnesota is like.
The Norwegian RRF that comes to Minnesota, receive for training, is basically individual soldier skills. We do bring in local law enforcement to do some asymmetrical threat operations to a very limited degree.
Both Norway and Minnesota have prioritized culture throughout the exchanges, and buddy weekends have remained a highlight for service members to experience the humble home life of their host nation.
The buddy weekends are probably one of the best part of the whole exchange, and it's pretty cool. You know, it's kind of a magical experience to actually be with a foreign family in a foreign country and eat their foreign food and all the rest. I think it's a cool thing both ways.
Holger and Heidi was the couple that hosted myself and another airman, and they were really great. They had 2 young boys. I think my favorite memory overall was where we went up to their family's cabin, similar to what we do here in Minnesota, and we got to explore and just sled with all of the little kids. And it was funny because we didn't speak the same language at all, but like you can communicate with little kids and do something fun together. Like we just went sledding for a few hours and it was a blast.
I think those have been wonderful too, and I hope they continue at the buddy weekends because of the fact that you really get some relationships there for the young people that are coming. I've had 2 different groups of guys that I've hosted, and we've had a ball, you know, out on the lake and showing them around Minnesota, and you know, there was a lot of fun. I think they really enjoyed being with my family, and I certainly enjoyed having them.
Sometimes, the buddy weekends can even bring entire families together.
So I think like most Minnesotans, I knew I had some sort of family relationship, you know, with Norway. My last name is Lappegard. I knew that was a Norwegian name. And so one day I'm walking through the chow line, and the cook behind the counter says, Lappegard. She's like, "You're from here, you know?" And I'm like, oh, that's funny. She's like, "No, really, you are, you know?" And sure enough, we pulled up a map. And there was my name on the map, you know, just across from the post. So she did a great job and connected me with my family, and then got to meet him, Olav Lappegard. He had a little farm out there, and that's where my family came from. And so that was magical. And I got interviewed by the local paper while I was there. Came back home, and it was written all in Norwegian, of course, because it's a Norwegian paper. And then I knew a good friend at school named Edel Moritzen, and she was Norwegian. And she helped translate it for me, and then later on we got married too. So I like to think it was kind of like the beginning of the path towards Norway, you know.
I think it's understated how important these international friendships are. You're building partnerships at a ground level, you know, not just at a strategic or a top leader level. You're really building it at kind of the lower levels, which I think is a deeper level of friendship.
While we might have similar values, we don't go through the same things until experience what other countries or other human beings go through, I think that is one of the biggest reasons why this Norwegian exchange is such a blessing to any soldier or airman that gets to go on it.
Our path towards partnership has brought more than 8,000 troops across the Atlantic, allowing them to share their tactical and cultural experiences with one another. Minnesota and Norway hope to transform their long-standing agreement from an annual exchange into an official partnership through the Department of Defense's State Partnership Program. The program, known as the SPP, provides a low-cost yet high payoff application to security cooperation efforts.
So when you look at our national defense strategy, it's very heavily reliant on allies and partners. And what a better way to develop allies and partners through our state partnership program. I really value this relationship between the Minnesota National Guard and Norway. The unique thing here is we're NATO allies. And so all the training that we do helps NATO and improve their capabilities and readiness across the board. Not only that, but the enduring relationships we've developed over the last 50 years, the ability to train together, operate in a joint environment is invaluable and a great standard for all of other state partners.
Being a partner nation in SPP, I think that would be a very good framework for putting other initiatives between the Home Guard and the Minnesota National Guard, but also other parts of the Norwegian Armed Forces and the US Armed Forces.
After 50 years of honoring a handshake agreement, Norway and the Minnesota National Guard seek to become official partners through the State Partnership Program, expanding their partnership and friendship for the next 50 years to come.
Just my highest praise both for the Minnesota National Guard and for Norway. If you look at this, predates our state partnership program by almost 20 years, and the ability for Minnesota and Norway to train together and work with each other for such a long period of time, it shows the importance of those enduring relationships and the importance of really training and working with an ally. It's a great program, and I'm really proud for them to celebrate 50 years.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that the Minnesota National Guard and the Norwegian Home Guard have built this bond and are providing you this opportunity. Enjoy your time, because it can literally change your life.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant Mariette, and all that participated in the video. The complete video is now posted to the Minnesota National Guard's Facebook site. Please share this video with your friends and loved ones. I now have the honor to introduce United States Senator Amy Klobuchar. During her time in the Senate, Senator Klobuchar has been a champion for our service members and veterans. Most recently, she supported the comprehensive bipartisan legislation to increase health care for veterans in the PACT Act. The PACT Act, the widest expansion of veterans benefits in decades, included her bipartisan bill to provide better education and training for Department of Veterans Affairs employees to ensure veterans are receiving the care they need. She supported landmark legislation like the post 9/11 GI Bill, the Caregivers and Veterans Omnibus Health Services Act. And as a member of the National Guard Caucus, she continues to strongly advocate for our National Guard members, helping to secure significant funding for upgrades of National Guard equipment and facilities, including recent funding for the Camp Ripley training facility, as well as her efforts to expand the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon program to the national level. Last year, she traveled to Ukraine several times and met with President Zelensky and discussed U.S. support for Ukraine and our allies. On those trips, she also met with service members stationed elsewhere in Europe, serving and supporting our allies. Her appreciation, passion, and service to military members and their families is evident in all she says and does. It is my honor to introduce our U.S. Senator, Amy Klobuchar.
Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction. And I want to thank, that video was extraordinary, and I wanted to thank Public Affairs Officer Chris O.J. and her entire team for putting that together. It was really beautiful. And I do have a little PS to the video. You know, the service member who ended up marrying the woman who was the interpreter? You might wonder what happened. General Menke told me he retired and they moved to Norway. So it just shows us how romantic this exchange truly is. So after a week in Washington, it is great to be back in Minnesota, where, as we say, all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, and all the stakes are above average. Thank you to serve our troops. It was just an incredible dinner, and as usual. And I think your next gig to go to Norway is a pretty good one. It is wonderful to be here among so many friends to celebrate the 50th anniversary of NOREX, and I have to say that this is no small part because of dedicated leaders. I know somewhere out there is Tex Sieben, whose uncle was the handshaker that we heard about as we watched the video, who served, and I see Roger Moe out there. Both of them were at the 30th and 40th anniversary, and I'm sure they'll be at the 100th as well. And I think it's just a lesson to all of us about how we pass the torch on. And certainly our governor, Tim Walz, has taken that torch in a big way to finally cement this relationship into this agreement with the intent letter sent today, codify it so no one can ever take it away from us. So thank you, Governor. It was my privilege to work with Congresswoman McCollum and Omar, and of course my good friend Senator Smith, who sends her greetings today, to make sure this actually got done in Washington, although we did need, Ambassador, a little royal intervention to make sure it happened. So we thank Her Majesty. And I also wanted to greet both of our ambassadors. I will note that Ambassador Krutnis came directly from the Arctic, and she reported to me today that when she arrived last night, before it got so warm today for the Winter Carnival, that it was actually warmer in the Arctic than it was in Minnesota when she landed. This makes us feel good. So thank you to all of our incredible National Guard and our Norwegian Home Guard members. Our Norwegians, you should know we don't get a lot of company in Minnesota in the winter, so we welcome you today. Norway has been critical to Minnesota's heritage and culture ever since the first Norwegian settlement was established in Spring Grove back in the early 1850s, even before Minnesota became a state. Today, our state is the proud home of 860,000 Norwegian Americans. That's more than any other state in the country and represents the second largest Norwegian population in the world outside of, guess what, Norway. There's also the Western Madison town of which is the lutefisk capital. If anyone has been to Madison, Minnesota, it is the lutefisk capital of the United States. And for anyone that hasn't visited, for your bucket list, Madison is proud of its 25-foot fiberglass cod named Mr. Lou T. Fisk that welcomes visitors to the town. And on the 200th anniversary of our Constitution, because the town was named Madison, and let us say that James Madison was not Norwegian in any way, but the town took the moment to put the fiberglass cod on the back of a truck and travel around the country, and they got media coverage in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and the Today Show. A true fact of our ingenuity in Minnesota. As a further testament to our strong ties and binds, I think you know, as Ben discussed, the visits of the King and Queen. I have a particularly memorable visit when Governor Dayton could not attend one year, and so I was the official leader as the senator at this big dinner Some of you, I'm sure, were there. I was on the stage, and we had all these rules that we were not supposed to eat before the king ate, and I forgot, and that salad looked really good, and I had my fork in the air, and everyone was looking, and the king looked, and he just yelled out, "Let's eat!" And that solved my problem. In any case, this relationship is so strong, and it is more strong than ever right now. When you think about what is happening in Ukraine, where Vladimir Putin, with his inhuman barbarism, has literally sent his troops into an independent democracy. And we all remember, after everyone had counted them out, when President Zelensky, in a great display of leadership, the first night went down to the streets in Ukraine and said the simple words, "We are here. We are here." And then he led his country. And for the other countries, which through the pandemic, I believe we'd all been in kind of a slumber, taking our democracies for granted, it ignited a partnership and reignited the allies in a way that we had never seen before. Norway has contributed many, many weapons, humanitarian aid, expertise, and as we sit here today, as Norway trains troops both in Great Britain and in their own country, we are training at Fort Sill Ukrainian soldiers on how to use the Patriot missiles. As Norway treats soldiers who have lost their limbs, we are doing the same thing in Minnesota. When I was with Senator Portman, with President Zelensky in August, we heard the stories of one of the most common names right now for new Ukrainian babies was HIMAR. And that is because they know that the American weapons have worked. And when everyone counted out Ukraine, we were at their side. So I want us to remember that this partnership that we have with Norway and this idea that we should train troops in the winter while Ukrainians are fighting in the winter and use our tanks, it is real. So we stand with Ukraine and we stand with the democracies of the world. So I thank you for this wonderful evening. The ambassador who I've gotten to know in Washington, our ambassador, we're so grateful for his service, allows us to have this moment of friendship and toast and the like. But we know the troops out there on both the Norwegian and the American side are so brave and doing the work to protect our democracies, and we thank you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. I now have the honor to introduce United States Representative for Minnesota's 4th Congressional District. Elected in 2000, Congresswoman Betty McCollum is the second woman elected to Congress from Minnesota since statehood in 1858. Throughout her career in public service, Congresswoman McCollum has been a champion for excellence in education, protecting the environment, expanding healthcare access, fiscal responsibility, and robust international engagement that prioritizes diplomacy, development, human rights, along with a strong national defense. In the 117th Congress, Congresswoman McCollum served as the chair of the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense, with jurisdiction over $800 billion in federal spending for the Department of Defense, the intelligence community, and support for the defense of Ukraine against Russian aggression. Chair McCollum traveled to Oslo and Trondheim in fall of 2022 to meet with senior leadership of the Norwegian Armed Forces and conduct oversight of U.S. pre-positioned equipment, where she witnessed firsthand the already close-knit relationship between our two nations' armed forces. Now, as ranking member, Congresswoman McCollum continues her strong advocacy for America's active duty and reserve component service members and families. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Congresswoman Betty McCollum.
Good evening. To all the honored guests here, my governor, the ambassadors, my colleagues in the House and the Senate, and for all of you who wear a uniform, whether it is a U.S. uniform or a Norwegian uniform, welcome. It's an honor to be here with you tonight, but I want to take a second and let us give a round of applause to those who served us, and Pat Harris and all the folks who are serving our troops. For nearly 20 years, Minnesota's families have been able to have a steak dinner. Whether it was in the heights of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, this group worked to provide meals to Minnesotans serving in harm's way. Also, in Kosovo and Kuwait. I want to thank them for being such strong community leaders. And I felt a little guilty being served tonight because usually I have an apron on and I'm serving the troops. So next time, I'll bring my apron. This is a very special anniversary, a very special moment they were celebrating. And I think the video said it all. I don't ski very well, and I felt everybody's pain as they were going into the snow. But this is what we have to do. We have to train. And something that we haven't done, and I'm very passionate about in my work in the Department of Defense with climate change and with what is happening, and we've seen the Russian aggression that's taking place in Ukraine, we have to be prepared with our allies, including Canada and the Nordic nations, to make sure that the Arctic remains accessible for all and freedom for all. And that is what the training that takes place in these cold weather climates does. It shows that we're prepared. The 5 decades that the Minnesota National Guard and the Home Guard have been doing that, they've been doing it by building bonds, by sharing stories, sharing memories, and creating families, as we even witnessed today. But it's important that we do that because it's important to have military capacity and readiness, but it's also important as allies that we understand that we share our passion, our love for democracy. And that happens when soldiers get to know each other. Our citizen soldiers who work on NOREX, they do it under extraordinary circumstances. And they're doing it now knowing war is on the European continent. And we know when times get tough, families stick together. Minnesota and Norway were family. The United States and Norway were family. And for me, being a Norwegian American, it is very important that I say to you that, Ambassador, I appreciated your comments about the Norwegian Vikings. I had family members who served, so thank you for pointing that out. It was so important, so ingrained during the holidays when we'd be together about the strong ties that our democracies have. So it was my honor to be in Trondheim, and I got to see amazing hospitality from all the Norwegian servicemen and women I met. And I also developed close-knit relationships and look forward to my return again. So this is our night to celebrate. It's to celebrate 50 wonderful years. And I look forward to another 50 years and beyond as state partners. It's great to be with you, and I'm looking forward to more wonderful music from the Norwegian Glee Club, and if they start singing Christmas carols, I might be able to join in. So, you're so glad to be with you this evening.
Thank you, Congresswoman McCollum. Ladies and gentlemen, throughout the evening, you have heard about the tremendous relationship built between our nations and their militaries. The commitment and friendship endure to this day as the leaders of both organizations continue this partnership. Next, it is my pleasure to introduce a leader who has kept this friendship alive. Major General Elisabeth Mikkelsen has led the Norwegian Home Guard since 2019. The Home Guard was founded in 1946 and today has land, air, and sea defense units throughout all districts in Norway capable of providing local defense, civil support, and international military response. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Chief of the Norwegian Home Guard, Major General Elisabeth Mikkelsen.
Good evening. Governor, ambassadors, senator, congresswomen, generals, distinguished guests, everybody. Today is a day for the history books. 50 years of cooperation. I think we all should be proud. I'm a proud commander of the Norwegian Home Guard. The Norwegian Home Guard is a direct result of the Second World War, established under the motto, "Never again," the 9th of April, with a strong will to fight for what we believe in. Today, that's more important than ever. As a small nation up in the high north, with Russia as a neighbor, I'm extremely grateful that we, 50 years ago, got a friend for life in Minnesota National Guard. For 2/3 of the Norwegian Home Guard's history, we have been walking shoulder by shoulder with Minnesota National Guard, building strong bonds with trust as the glue in our relationships. The history says that the two generals starting the longest-lasting relationship wrote the initial deal on a napkin. I'm not sure about that, but they sealed the deal with a handshake, as we saw in the video. Thank you. I'm grateful for the welcoming we get here every year and the experience this is for our troops. Friendship for life, mutual respect, and trust are important words describing the exchange. The US is Norway's most important ally. Last year, we were able to get the exchange back on track after a 2-year COVID pause. In parallel, we just had started the process towards a possible state partnership program. Today, we have signed the letter of intent, a very good foundation for developing the relationship for the next 50 years. It would not have been possible without all the dedicated people working towards a common goal. There have been many dedicated people throughout this last 50 years, and 2 of them are present here today. I would like Brigadier General Lowell Cruz and Major General Sean Monke to join me here at the stage. These 2 gentlemen have been extremely important for the NOREX exchange and the developing of the SPP. First, as the commander of the Norwegian Home Guard, I will give the Norwegian Home Guard Medal of Merit to Brigadier General Lowell Cruz for his dedication to the NOREX over the last 17 years. You have been instrumental, and we are forever grateful. And then I will present the Defense Service Medal with Laurel Branch to Major General Sean Monke for his significant effort to get the SPP signed, and through this have laid the foundation for the future cooperation between our countries. This one is signed by our Chief of Defense, Eric Christofferson. And then I would like the Norwegian contingent to all rise. And we Norwegian would like to propose a toast for the next 50 years to come. Skål. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Major General Mikkelsen. Ladies and gentlemen, the 32nd Adjutant General, Major General Sean Mankey, leads the Minnesota National Guard's nearly 13,000 citizen soldiers and airmen. The Minnesota National Guard was founded as a territorial militia in 1856 and today has Army and Air units in 58 communities throughout the state. Minnesota National Guard units mobilize to assist local authorities at the direction of the governor or deploy to provide ready forces to combatant commanders worldwide at the order of the President. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Adjutant General of Minnesota, Major General Sean Mankey.
Good evening, Ambassadors, Governor Walz, Senator Klobuchar, Congresswoman McCollum, Lieutenant General Jensen, friends of the Minnesota National Guard, and friends of Norway. Thank you for taking time out of this extremely busy time to celebrate with us tonight 50 years of the NOREX. This exchange precludes the existing state partnership program by about 20 years, and this program is really about the relationships. And it's more between the two countries and their militaries. It's 50 years of relationships, but really more than 8,000 relationships built between our citizen soldiers, airmen, and Norway's Home Guard, and the citizens of Minnesota and the citizens of Norway. The NOREX50 video you just watched captured a fraction of the number of people impacted by this exchange. When I look around the room at our Norwegian partners, I see the connections and friendships we have made throughout our service. Most recently, I've had the privilege of getting to know and partner with Major General Mikkelsen and Major General Hagen. I certainly appreciate the professional relationship we have formed, but more importantly, the friendship. It's all about the relationship. It is through these relationships that our militaries gain trust in one another, and that makes us both stronger. Well, tonight we're celebrating 50 years, as was said by the other speakers. It's really much more than 50 years, going back to World War II and the 99th Infantry Brigade. But I would like to highlight one other example of this partnership. In August of 2021, during the withdrawal from Afghanistan, while Norway and the United States stood shoulder to shoulder, a subset of the U.S. forces in HKI Airport in Kabul, Afghanistan, were from the Minnesota National Guard. It was our own 10194 bastards providing security for the airfield. Additionally, during the withdrawal of Afghanistan, there was an airman from the 133rd Airlift Wing, a critical care nurse, Major Katie Lunning. And listening to Major Lunning's story, she talked about the Norwegian hospital in Kabul, and she talked about the professionalism of the Norwegians providing care after the devastating bombing at the Abbey Gate. And Katie Lunning and her team worked with the Norwegian hospital staff, the Norwegians, prioritizing patients and identifying those that most expeditionally need to be evacuated, loaded them on a C-17 airplane, and then flew them to Germany for further care. This is just another example of the relationship that the United States and the Minnesota National Guard has with our Norwegian partners. And this relationship really pays more dividends, and this exchange pays more dividends that are yet to come that we really can't manage. Lieutenant General Jensen once told me it's really about the relationship with people, and I can't think of a more fitting example than the Norwegian exchange that we've done, and I think we will be able to amplify that through the state partnership program that we're signing here in a week or so formally. And I think largely because of the long-standing relationship we share with Norway and Minnesota, when a Minnesota service member sees a comrade with the Norwegian flag on their uniform, it's instant credibility and trust. And I hope when a Norwegian service member sees a U.S. comrade with a United States flag on their shoulder, they feel the same. But I would add, when they know that U.S. service member is a member of the Minnesota National Guard, they feel even better. Thank you for everyone who has joined us tonight, and thank you for the Norwegians for the tremendous partnership. We look forward to the next 50 years. And as Congresswoman McCollum so graciously put it, I would like to invite Pat Harris to come forward and receive a small token of our appreciation for tonight on behalf of serving our troops. And we all know that this event doesn't just happen, so I'd like to thank the Minnesota Public Affairs Office team, as well as the Joint Force Headquarters, all the employees here at the River Center, and the corporate partners who have helped serving our troops facilitate this event, and the countless trips that they have made to serve a good steak to our soldiers and airmen in a foreign land. So Pat, on behalf of the Minnesota National Guard, thank you very much for your continued support.
Thank you so much, General Menke. I'll be very, very brief. Serving our troops is such a team effort in this great city of St. Paul and throughout the state of Minnesota. And we started 19 years ago, back in 2004, when we went to Kosovo. And 16 projects later, 110,000 steaks, our message is still the exact same, which is a great meal that we all had tonight. And tonight I want to say, too, this is the exact same meal in the exact same way we do it for our families when we're serving our families back at home and simultaneously serving the soldiers overseas. And I can tell you, Governor Walz and Senator Klobuchar and Congresswoman McCollum, they've definitely put the aprons on and they've sweated it out serving steaks to our families. So it's a great meal. Thank you so much for them. Absolutely. Serving our troops is also a message to Minnesota through the media that our Minnesota National Guard are deploying each and every day and that we should be thinking about them. And then it's a message to communities and to our Norwegian friends as well, a message to communities and our National Guard that we support what you're doing for our communities every single day. So we've been proud to be part of the NOREX project for over a decade now, and extremely honored to be here tonight. I do want to take a second and really thank some of our sponsors, because we really are a team effort at serving our troops. So I want to thank Morrissey Hospitality, our incredible friend from the beginning, our labor friends from the Minnesota Building and Construction Trades Council, La Una, Local 563, Joe Fowler, incredible. The Shell's Brewery, the Marty family are here tonight. I can tell you this, I might have been counting beers at some point in my life, and we have brought over 30,000 beers as part of the NOREX project. Maybe I shouldn't have said that on a podium, but what the heck. And, but thank you to the Marty family and what they've done for all of our projects. XL Energy, Coca-Cola, Sweet Martha's Cookies, which are at your table right now, and please take that bucket of cookies home. The St. Paul River Center and Wilkins Auditorium, incredible partners from the beginning. Blue Plate Restaurant Group, Porterhouse Restaurants, U.S. Foods, Reinhardt Foods, our friends at Stockyard Meats, Cretin-Derham Hall, Junior ROTC volunteering here tonight. My son's out there, I believe. Snow Globe Public Relations and PMA Financial Network for all the support that all these companies provide serving our troops for all of our projects. So General Menke, Governor Walz, Senator Klobuchar and Senator McCollum, on behalf of all of our team, we just want to thank you for allowing us to play this very tiny role in the important service that you provide across our country. Now, if I could bring up those other Vikings, I so much wanted to speak my only Norwegian language about a week from now in the Super Bowl, but unfortunately I'm not going to be able to do that. But I am super proud on behalf of our Serving Our Troops project and everybody, to all of our Norwegian friends and our friends at the Minnesota National Guard, to say skål.
Thank you, Major General Menke and Mr. Pat Harris. Ladies and gentlemen, as our program comes to a close, once again, and I don't know if they're doing Christmas carols, please welcome the Norwegian Glee Club of Minneapolis.
Saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. I've roamed and rambled, and I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts, and all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. When the sun comes shining and I am strolling, and the wheat fields waving, and the dust clouds rolling, as the fog was lifting, a voice was chanting, this land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.
Thank you, Norwegian Glee Club of Minneapolis. Ladies and gentlemen, Thank you for taking the time this evening to commemorate the 50th anniversary of this one-of-a-kind annual exchange. As you could no doubt tell by our distinguished speakers here this evening, the U.S.-Norwegian Reciprocal Troop Exchange is a vibrant and important program that strengthens relationships and friendships between our two nations. Thank you, Governor Walz, Her Excellency Ambassador Krutnis, His Excellency Ambassador Nathanson, Senator Klobuchar, Congresswoman McCollum, Congresswoman Omar, Major General Mikkelsen, and Major General Mankey for taking the time to share your views on the importance of this unique Minnesota and Norway connection. A special thanks to serving our troops and their sponsors, the River Center staff, the Camp Ripley and Joint Force Headquarters members for planning and executing this event, 34th Red Bull Infantry Division Band, our anthem singers, Dr. Alness, the Norwegian Glee Club of Minneapolis, and Minnesota National Guard's Funeral Honors team. Your support to this event made this night possible, a night to remember. At this time, we invite Chaplain Wynn forward to provide the benediction.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and receive this blessing. Grace and peace be unto you from God, the undivided Creator, and Gud stemning. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Wynn. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending the 50th anniversary of the U.S.-Norwegian Reciprocal Troop Exchange. Please take the memory of this weekend home with you, and we look forward to celebrating the next 50 years. This concludes our program for this evening. Thank you.